Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Today I've got to water everything except the winter resting dendrobiums. Everything. I may not get everything done, but what I thought, I'm starting with the mounts because they're the only things that need a drop of feed. All the pots, holy clay pots and stuff, had some feed last time, so they'll get a flush this time, just water. So the mounts needed a feed. And I'm doing them first to get them out of the way, then I can start on the shelves. But what I thought I'd do today is do a fast update on the mounts. Now obviously the winter resters won't get included because they're not coming down. They do tend to be that lot up the back there in the main. So just to whiz along, just to say what's going on with each one. No elaborations, just okay, not okay. Might not last much longer, that sort of thing. And I'll do them in little sets as I've watered them. So this is the first set I always water that live there. And then I move on to there. And then I move on to these. Then I move on to these first, followed by those. And that's my first set. They've all got room to hang and drip before I need to put them back to make room for more. And then last of all, we do this little group here, which is only a few. The ones with their back to us are resters, so they don't get done. These couple here, again, the ones with their backs to us are resters, and some of these up here. And that's it. Yeah. And then today I will do the Vandas and the Renantheras, as I'm doing everything, if you see what I mean. So anyway, first set, Dendrobium harveyanum. Been recovering for a very, very long time, has a new growth that may make it. It's probably its last chance. If it doesn't make it this time, it's going to go, and I will look out for another one because I want that plant. This black hair type, relatively new, Dendrobium canififerum, something like that anyway. But anyway, this is what I bought. This is the cane I was going to say I've grown, but it hasn't finished growing yet. It's still growing, and it's getting a lot larger than I expected, I must admit. Then there's my 4 Oranges, come on brain. Mr. Sidii, that was the main plant, but it had 2 plants in the pot. The second one, a younger plant. This one's starting to extend some of the roots, but no new leaf. This one hasn't got any root growth, but it is starting a new leaf. Then there's the Fastuosa. That's matured a new leaf recently and pushed out a couple of new roots. And this one, I can never remember the name of, and I know it hasn't got a tag. It was basically a handful of seedlings thrown on a mountain and growing on. But the 3 main plants there are all growing new leaves. In fact, that little plant underneath there is growing a new leaf. So that's in active growth. There's not a lot of root activity. That root sticking up the top is growing an extension, and there's one there with a root tip showing signs. But yeah, sort of coming into growth. And I chose that one because it's one of the very few Oranges that's got a splash of colour on it. Most of the Oranges are white or creamy, sometimes greeny tinged, but basically very close to white. Well, this one is pure white with an orange splash in the centre, so it's unusual. And then this one on the end is this strange thing, Mexicoa. I'm not attempting to pronounce that. This is growing some new roots, so it's okay, coming on. Right, that's that little group. Okay, now these 2, one of them is Shelob Tolkien and one of them is Sweet Sugar, and I don't know which way round they are, and at the moment I don't care. I just need them to take to their mounts. This one's got a new growth coming and some signs of roots, but slow to get going, that one. This one produced a new growth a while ago, which has then produced quite a large set of roots to go with it. That will produce a new growth again soon, so there'll be another one to come on there. Coming along the bottom, we've got the Cinnamon Twinkle. That one's doing okay. This one is the little miniature Oncidium I bought back from Jeff's. Oh, knees creaking. This one here is an Aliciara that I've been recovering for many, many years. It's called Evening Colours, and it has recently, well, in the last year, grown 3 new growths, including this one that's pushing on, not formed its bulb yet, and is starting yet another one. So that one's coming back nicely. And then those are the 2 yellow twinkles. Some rot in the pot, and decided when I repotted it to actually mount it, and it went into 2 pieces naturally, so I thought, well, we'll have 2 yellow twinkles then. So that's that lot. Right, coming along this little group, this is my this has been struggling for ages, but it seems to be doing better now that it's mounted. Basically it's something like Vericosa, but it's got my name in it, Roger's eye, and it's far from happy, but it is producing a new growth. I'm not sure it likes the mount, but then it didn't like the pot either. So it's going to get left on there. Let's give it another growing season and see what it does. That piece that fell on the floor down there is actually a rotted pseudo bulb. That was its last attempt at a new growth, which just didn't produce roots or anything. So we've got the growth out to the right hand side there with 2 leaves on. That's relatively successful, but that's the sort of size bulb we should be aiming at here. And we have another new growth. That's all I can say about that. It's just not happy. It just will not grow. That's one. The Cattleya cernua blooms are nearly gone now. That will be followed by the new growths maturing. Most have a single leaf. Occasionally you get a pair of leaves on a growth. Those leaves will darken, the bulbs will mature, and then it will do nothing for about 6 months. That's how it grows. This is the Twinkle crossed back with Sotoanum. That seems to be happy on its mount. And what I'm pleased about with this one, I know it sounds daft, more than anything, is the moss is alive. We've got lovely live moss on that mount that's growing. So that's good. The only Tolumnia in bloom at the moment, and it's down to its last one. Has it got a name? Yes, it has. That is Jarrac Firm Hickory, it says on the label. And that is just starting a new growth at the base of the fan that's just bloomed, so that's good. And then the Cattleya genmanii, the blooms are going now. What is that? Dark shape in the centre of a bloom. Always check it out because it's probably a mealybug. There. Yeah, I think it was. There are a few in here, but there's so few I don't sort of, you know, I'm not going to douse the whole flipping grow room for half a dozen mealybugs on various plants. That's not going to happen. Anyway, as far as the plant is concerned, this is one that's a bit suspect to keep. I love the blooms, the fragrance is gorgeous, but you're lucky to get 4 weeks. And it's once a year, and it's a long, straggly plant. But it's basically, it grows its new growth, matures, puts up a sheath, then the buds come and the blooms come, and somewhere during that budding process, the new roots start. And it always has a good flush of roots from the base of the latest growth, as well as a burst of roots from older, branched roots. So it has a spurt of root growth around that time. And then it'll just sit there and do nothing until the next new growth comes. It has quite a bit of a period of non-growth, that one. And then coming round this side, we've got the Twinkle Red Fantasy. I got this down so that I could see it, and unfortunately I think it's getting a bit of a blast from the heater because it's dropping buds all over the place. So I'm going to move that after I've watered it. I need to put it out of the line of fire of the heater basically because it's objecting to it. This has got to come off of its mount, and in doing so it'll end up being split. So this is going to end up with probably 3 or 4 plants. But the centre of the plant is dying back. I've got leafless bulbs, some of them starting to look a bit iffy. So it's got to come off and be redone. So that'll be after it's bloomed and it shows signs of the new growth starting. And then over here we've got this mounted Phalaenopsis. Now this has grown a fair bit this year. It's put on several leaves. If you notice, there's some larger leaves and then there's 2 tiny ones. I thought it was failing because those did not mature. There's another mealybug under there too. Get them while you see them. There's one on top of the leaf there and one underneath. That's already stuck to my finger. Right, so that's those done. No more? Nope. Right, so it grew those two tiny little leaves, but the latest two leaves are better. They're still not full size, I don't think, but they're better. But what it has done is grown a lot of new roots. So that one's sort of coming back. It's okay. My little Psychopsis, several failed attempts at producing new growths and very little root activity, but the latest new growth up the top here is maturing and there's no sign of rot. So I think that one's going to make it. Needs to form a proper bulb and produce a few more roots preferably. There is one or two roots at the base of that growth. And there are signs of some root activity, but it's very, very little. It needs more roots. And then the other little one, the one that's been in flower for quite a while, very lovely, delicate little bloom. And this one's also producing a new leaf. So this had the pitting effect, this one, which we sort of tied down to a specific ailment geared up to cell collapse basically, but this one's extended a few roots in places and is now grown a new leaf. Hopefully that leaf won't have any pitting on it. It shouldn't have, but again we have to wait and see. So that's that little group, and the only thing that lives over in this area is my young Victoria Regina, which lives under here where it keeps cool. And this cane is still growing, it's still extending, so it's getting longer all the time and it's plumping up a bit. I suspect when we come to the longer days it should trigger another new growth, maybe two, who knows, and some additional roots, because it hasn't got many roots, that thing, but then it hasn't got much to do, so it's okay. So that's that little group. Okay, we're up to everything that lives on that side of that rack this time. There's the Dendrobium canico, that's busy producing some nice new canes that are still in active growth. Some of the ones from last year have actually finished growing and are starting to drop their leaves, which will replace the leafless canes that are virtually done blooming now, most of these down here. That's not exactly a cluster, it's a bud. I think that's just a vague attempt at trying to keep the blooming going, because this blooms almost all year round, which is good. It's pushed out a lot of new roots and it has a very strong kiki over here. Lovely one coming out from miles away from the mount, so that can be separated, that one. And over here we've got, this is an anosmum kiki that we took off the plant and mounted. That's produced some good roots and is finished growing now. My glomeratum new shoots are pushing on, not showing any signs of failing. Those will eventually produce a new root system and I'll have a successful plant again after a long time. The little bulbophyllum, Pomilio I think that is, species anyway, that's got 6 or 7 new growths, pushing on well, and the moss is alive, yay! I think the moss is alive here too. This moss is old moss, that's very old moss, so that would be zombie moss that's actually come to life or has grabbed some spores from another mount nearby, something like that. And Senilli down here never looks very good this time of year, because it starts to, it's sort of like a withering process that it does in the winter as a result of the reduction in the water, shortening days and various things, but it perks up again when the longer days and the spring comes, and then we should get some blooms after that on some of these canes. Then the new growths will start. But the trouble with this one is it produces new growths in the autumn sometimes, and then you have to keep it going through the winter or lose those growths. Choices? Right, that lot now. Okay, so that's the ones from the other side of that rack cleared off. I'll brighten up this area when all those plants are gone. It's amazing how much shading is provided by these racks that are up high. There's a lot of shade provided, and in some cases I could do without it, but they got to go somewhere. Right, coming along here then, where did we get to? This is Dendrobium tortilli. And this was a present from Alberto when he had to give up his collection, so that came over from Italy. 2 previous canes there, grown 2 lovely strong new canes, you know, this year. I suspect we might see some blooms on that now. And that is the replacement for the one that went to INSA, and it's the variety Laos with the yellow centre, and I've forgotten the name of that. I'm not looking up names. And this giant here that's pushed on really well this year is it's a nobly type Comet King. That came from Rachel as a little kiki. That's pushed on really well this year with an abundance of roots. And I know the next question, somebody's going to say, why are you watering and feeding a nobly type? Because the bulbs are still swelling and the roots are still growing. And it may or may not bloom, but I'm not growing this to bloom it in the spring. I'm growing it for the plant. If it blooms, all well and good. If it doesn't, I really don't care. I need it to grow on into a good plant. Same with the tortilli. That shouldn't really be fed this time of year. And this one. But they're all young plants, effectively, and they are all growing roots. So I'm doing it. And then the Tolumnias, these are my older Tolumnias. Both of these mature ones here are going to come off their mounts. I've made up my mind now. We looked at this one on Sunday, and I said the back end of the plant's looking really tatty now. It needs replenishing. It needs to go on a new mount with some new moss and be tied on upright. Same with this one. Most of the new growths are hanging down. It's starting to look a scrappy plant. Yeah, it's got plenty of new growths. There's roots coming in amongst those new growths. So now, you know, soon is the time to do it. This Tolumnia came from Lynn, and I'm still not quite sure why. Bearing in mind she grows Tolumnias. It's not like it doesn't look like a little piece that broke off, but whatever it is, it's blooming. It's a white something, white beauty. So that one came from Lynn. That's relatively new. These are two old ones that are recovering from the scale attack. They're sort of recovering. I mean, this one's got a couple of nice new fans out the side there. An attempt at some roots and some older parts. And this one is struggling. But nonetheless, it has pushed up a new fan and it's starting a few roots. So it'll probably just about make it. But when they get to that state, they're slow to go. And then the other four Tolumnias are all the new ones from the Schwerter order. Two that I ordered and two that hitched a ride. So these are recent acquisitions, recently mounted. They've all got reasonable roots and none of them have got tags, I don't think. Some of them might have. The tags got lost. But I know which ones they are if I go back to the video when they were mounted, because they were tagged at that point. Again, nice strong new growth, reasonable root systems. Those two will pull on. And then this one's got a lovely new growth there with an associated root system. Those roots existed, so they probably won't attach. So it needs another new fan to get some new roots that will attach. But nice plant. And then the biggest and best one out of that set is this one. And this has new growths coming out all over the place, which will produce new roots, which will attach. But it's got a good root system anyway. It's just got new growths coming out all over the place. So, right, that's that lot, and that is a session there. So I now walk away and update my notes, allow those to drip and dribble all over the floor, and then I have to come in and put those back and start on the next lot, where we'll reconvene with the camera. Okay, the next lot are from up there and from up there. This is just a small amount this time round, so this doesn't take long. That's the Epidendrum Lenipes, grown some good roots and a nice big fat cane up there. All its growth from this year is now finished growing, although there's still some swelling going on. And I'll do this one next because I want to get it out of the way so that I can get at the others. Basically, we are going to get some blooms very soon, yeah, and there will be lots of them. There will be a little bit of a succession, but basically that is a Laelia that I got at the Welsh show last year. It's a primary cross that's actually got a name. It's Joyce Hilton, I think it is, because there's no tag on it. I don't even need to look. Anyway, that is growing nicely. I am well pleased with that. And hopefully the blooms will be as pleasurable as they were when I bought it. and the reason why I bought it, if you see what I mean. Sometimes second time round you're a bit disappointed. Anyway, next lot. This is my new Cattleya. Has it got a tag on it? Yes, it has. SLC Seagull's Raindrop crossed with Cattleya. Why not? So that's one of the Schwerter ones that hitched a ride. Lovely new bit of root growth there. Quite a few of those are probably going to stay aerial, but there's some round the back as well to attach to the mount. So and sometimes they head in towards the mount anyway. So some good growth on there. That latest growth is not going to bloom, but the next one probably will. So that's that one. And then this is my one I nearly lost due to rot. Great big growth there, rotted. We've got some black markings on that growth, and that growth rotted. But it managed to push one out from a bulb farther back, which is okay and has attempted to grow a few roots, but not many, so it's not happy. But it's got a bud in there, and I think that's probably only going to have one bloom on it. We shall see how that goes. But it's in a state of recovery, but it hasn't recovered properly yet. And that's the little lemon drops crossed with Encyclia vitellina, that one. And then this was another one from the Schwerter Hall. And I think this is one of the others that hitched a ride, because I don't think I'd have chosen that because I can't say it. But Sophronitis anyway, so it should have either red or orangey coloured blooms when it gets to that size. It's got some root growth going on, and at some point in the near future it's coming off of that thing and going on a piece of cork, because I don't like the idea of clay as a mount. It has a cooling effect, evaporative cooling, which is great if it's the type of orchid that needs to be cooled, but Cattleya roots don't need cooling down. So that's going to have to come off of there and go on to something, which this will be quite a good time to do it, because I don't think that root's attached yet. No, it hasn't. So we've got root tips that will carry on growing and may attach. So now, pretty good time to do that. Okay, that's that little set. As I say, that's just a short set there. While I get the rest of those, these then go back and we get some more down from up there, both sides, and then that's the lot. Well, that's the lot of the mounts. I've still got all the rest of that to water yet, so I need to crack on. Whoops, I forgot these two. They belong in this set. Because I moved a few plants around, my routine is a little broken. Those don't normally go there to drip. So having put them there, I completely forgot they were there. It's only when I saw the empty space I realised something was missing. Anyway, these were two of the ones I bought from Jeff, which are Brassavola types. There's nothing much happening with this one yet. Didn't have very good roots. There are eyes in quite a few places on there. That's just waiting those new growths to start, and then the roots will come. This one did, however, have some buds, which is why I grabbed it. Those have now both opened. Golden peacock. Relatively attractive blooms. If you follow that cane down, pseudobulb down, you'll see the eye at the base. That will move soon. There's another one there that's starting to swell. So we've got some new growths on the way on this one. Again, not a brilliant root system by any means, but Brassavola types are quite vigorous in as much as they push up new growths quite frequently, and they always produce roots on those new growths, so we will get roots down the line. So that's the two that nearly got forgot. Okay, last few now. These are the ones from up there. Everything else that's up there is in full rest, as in true rest. Some of the others are resting types, but have some form of growth or some reason that they're not getting a total rest, however those are. What you've got up there is a Nosmum, a Phyllum, Nestor and Friedrichianum. Those are the four, those are the biggies. Right, this one I'm going to class as a mistake. This was a purchase last year, and we did get it to bloom, but look at it. That's the mount. These are the canes, and they're still growing. I can't be doing with a plant that has canes that long. The only way this could be acceptable and kept is if I stake it upright. So take these long canes off yeah? And then keep these growing upright, possibly even in a pot. That's the only way I'm going to keep this, otherwise it's going to have to go. It's just straggly and too big. I can't be doing with it, but the blooms were very nice. I've forgotten what it's called. It's sort of gone out of my mind because I'm a little annoyed with it. I didn't realise it was going to get anywhere near that big, and you know, it's still growing. It just won't stop. These little new growths that started are just pushing on, and it's got some more coming, so it's growing well. But anyway, and then this is a nobly type that's decided to be a bush instead of long canes. It's a bush. So be it. Well, that seems to be how it grows. Those are the size of the canes, and many of them. And it's trying to grow some more, and it's growing roots. That's why that's just been allowed to have some feed. This one is, I believe, one of the Twinkle and Cattleyas, one that I chose. Yes, that's Volcano Trick that I'd been after quite a while, and it's the variety Orange Fire. So that's a relatively new acquisition. It was 2 plants at the end of the day. The tiny little one is at the back. That may or may not grow. The latest one at the front, not very good roots, but hopefully some will come soon. And that should grow fine on a mount. So that's that one. And then these two are the Miltonia castaneae, which is a naturally occurring hybrid. So it's one of those that has the X in front of the name. And there's that plane again. Training day. It's the first time we've had a sunny day for ages. Mind you, it's sub-zero out. Oh no, the frost has just melted. We had a whiteout this morning, real hard frost. So this one is growing a weak growth there, but that growth is producing some roots, and it's producing another new growth. This is a reliable one. The growths get up to about half size, and then it has a massive burst of roots. So the next set of roots that produces will attach to the mount, so that's good. And then the other piece that came, because it grew in 2 directions, and it was growing off the end of the mount in 2 directions, which is why it got taken off and then split, and the centre of the plant dumped. So this is the other end, basically, and this one's a little bit behind, but this one has 2 new growths starting, both of which will produce roots around the same time. And they're both heading in the direction that was planned. In other words, they've got all of the rest of that mount to grow onto and produce roots and attach. Right, so that's those. And then over here are the 2 biggies. Watch where I'm walking now, knocking stuff. This is my Hercoglossum. Now, these are the 2-year-old canes down here. These will bloom. This is last year's growth up here, still growing on through the winter as it does. They will eventually arch over and lay on top of these. And in behind there are the leafless canes that probably have finished blooming now and need a trim. But I'm waiting for the new growths to start in the spring. And then I can remove some of those older canes. Reliable bloomer, reliable grower, a big plant, and I don't mind because I love the blooms. And then there's this thing, Dendrobium chryseum, that's on borrowed time. Now this, strictly speaking, should have quite a cool winter, and I mean cool, much cooler than I can give it. But nonetheless, I've got canes that are starting to distort where it's been deprived of moisture, where I was trying to keep it cool and resting it, and it doesn't want it. It wants to grow, so that's why it's come down. Looks like we've got a few scale on here too. Funny, a plant that big and they still stick out, and just that little bit, that's it. There aren't any more. Just that one little outbreak. But this grows incredibly well for me, but we've still yet to get some blooms. So get towards the end of January, this is going to get a chill. It's going to go outside. And if we've got nights that are predicted not to go down much below sort of 7, 8 degrees, it's going to stay out all night. But it's going to get much cooler temperatures than I've got in here, because I'm taking the daytime up to either 18 or 19. Far too warm. If this is going to trigger blooms, it needs to cool right down. Cooler than anything else I've got in here. So the only place that can happen is outside. So we will try it, and if I overcook it and we get a night that's predicted to go down to say 7-8 degrees and it drops down to 0, we may lose the plant. We shall see. But I've got to try and do something to get it to bloom, otherwise I don't want it, because it takes up a lot of space and it's a hassle. So it needs to bloom and they need to be good. So we shall see. So that's the lot for this session. That's the mounts that are getting watered today. What hasn't been watered is the Africana, Jenkinsii, Anosmum, Nestor, Aphyllum, Friedrichsianum, Lodigesii and Lindleyi. Those are the ones that haven't been watered today because they are properly resting, if you know what I mean. They get water very, very occasionally, and they only get water. This was a feed run, yeah? It's only a low feed. It was about, I think it was 130, TDS of 130, so very low feed. Just keep things ticking over. They're not getting a lot of light and they're not getting a lot of warmth, so there's not a lot of growth going on. Don't need a lot of food. Okay, so that's just a quick look round the mounts. I'd like to do a similar thing with the pots, but I can't. It doesn't work that easily with the pots because they have to go on here, and I can only do so many at a time, and they're all squashed up and they're in a particular sequence so that I can put them back in the right order. So it doesn't work as well. But yeah, that's a look round some of the mounts. I know it was quick and some of them didn't get named, so be it. But it's just a look at how things are ticking over during their slowest period. You know, I mean, we've got 6 weeks now, 6 or 7 weeks before the day lengths really start bumping up. I mean, by the end of February, we're virtually back to 11 hours again. But it's going to take all of January to creep slowly, slowly, slowly. And then as we go into February, the rate speeds up till the end of February when we're back up to growing day lengths again. And it'll then depend on whether we get sunny days or dull days. You can still get flipping snow at the end of February into March, we shall see. It's quite a bit of the UK got some snow at the moment and very, real sub-zero temperatures, not coming up much above freezing during the day in places. But here on the south coast, we're a little bit more sheltered here. We get the warmth from the sea, and those coastal winds seem to be a bit warmer than they are coming off the North Sea. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.